Welcome, everyone, to Hit the Books, a college basketball edition. CC, we made it, baby. We're here. Championship week, March Madness, Selection Sunday right around the corner. It is our time. How are you doing, my man?
Yeah, it's been a minute. We took a week off, so feeling good. A lot of college basketball going on. Perfect time to come back. Championship week, conference tournament week. The Blazers are about to make their statement to get into March, so it's all a good week coming.
Yeah, we're gonna have a lot ahead here. We're gonna break down some of the major conferences. I got a couple of bets I made. We're gonna look to tonight. Real quick though, CC, I just want to give everyone like how we approach this time of year. See, I'm probably different than 99.5% of the people coming into March here. I was fortunate to have a good college basketball season, so I already have like a profit, and I'm going to be selective now. You know what I mean? Like I don't want that to go down too much if I have a bad March. So I always bet college basketball for money. This is the sport I really bet to try to win money. So I get selective at this time of year. And I also think it's a tougher time to bet because those advantages we've had earlier in the year, back before odds makers really caught up to us, those are gone. How do you approach championship week and entering the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, I think there's situations that you don't get typically that you'll get now. So situational betting is a ton. Looking into different dynamics like that. So like a team playing 4 games in a row versus a team that hasn't played, or a St. Mary's tonight who hasn't played on a neutral court, but BYU did. Maybe BYU starts a little faster, so BYU first half. So situational type aspects. I was talking before we hopped on, but I really don't bet conference tournament outrights very much just because of the hold on the market itself, but looking for any kind of advantage like that. There's a lot of things to be opened up just due to the fact that these teams have played now, a lot of them the third time in a row. And then usually in March, like in actual madness, I typically slow down. But in conference tournaments, there's still heavy outliers to be found, and just some slim picking. I find myself betting a lot of first halves more than full game, but I don't know if that's just coincidence by any means.
All right. Well, hey, we got a lot of basketball to get to. Let's get to Monday's action. If you're listening to the show, we record this on Monday. We're going to look at a couple of games here. So the Sun Belt, CC, one of my favorite conferences this year, right? And you saw about a month ago a South Alabama team starting to hit its stride. Now, there's been a lot of good teams in the Sun Belt. I thought all year that Louisiana was the best team. I also think they have an edge against South Alabama. A lot of people go with you can't beat a team 3 times in a row. I go the opposite way. So maybe you're just have an advantage. You have an edge somewhere against that team, especially in college basketball. I see Louisiana having a huge edge in the paint here, a big rebounding edge. I think they defend in the paint really well. I took them on the money line on the opener. It's now about -1.5 with Louisiana. Going to be a good game. I like the Ragin' Cajun. Where are you at on this one?
Yeah, I agree. We'll lock that in for the first show to start off on Monday. Quick, Louisiana, we can get a 115, 1.5, -110. So we'll take Louisiana. I agree. South Alabama is a team that's really struggled in the rebounding category, 349th in offensive rebounding percentage. The main thing for me here is South Alabama in the last month has fallen, let's see, January 28th, they were 196th in Ken Palm rating. They are now 95th in 1 month, 92nd. I don't think that what they did go on a high streak. They looked good, but I don't think what they did deserved 100 spot jump. Their Southern Miss was a good win. App State, a decent win. They lost to Louisiana. I don't think they deserved a 100-point jump by any means. And getting a little overvalued here. This team that was 16-1 pre-conference tournament, and now they're matched up versus basically the Louisiana team that we expected to get there. So I think this number is a bit low, and I completely agree with you on Louisiana there.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be about -3. So we're going to lock that in, Louisiana, for the show. Now, a game I really want to get your thoughts on. I don't know if you bet it, but a conference I followed very closely this year because I had Samford, as I bet them early on to be the regular season champ, was the SoCon. That went down to the final day against Furman. It didn't go my way. Now, Furman had to go into over. Furman's an interesting team, CC. They've been good for a while, but for some reason, they just can't get over the hump to the tournament. They went to overtime, yesterday against Western Carolina. They got the win. I kind of feel like it's Furman's year, but an interesting with the spread here. It opened up -8 in some places, which shocked the heck out of me. Then I wake up this morning and it's -4. So obviously money came in on Chattanooga. An interesting game here. How do you see any edges here for either one of these teams?
Yeah, so I have a lot in this game. For better or for worse. So I took the under 153.5, which is
I knew it.
So,
I wish I could have bet that you had the under in this game.
Yeah, so I've bet both unders in this game this year, and both have went under decently. So I think it's an interesting game, and the number's fallen, but I still, for people listening now, I still do like the first half under. Zach, if you can click that first half, I think it was 71 earlier when I checked. 71.5, pretty juiced. But yeah, you can get a 71 at win. 71 is close. I think that if we were to play it on the show, it would probably be slightly less than what we usually do. I think 100's the typical, so just like a 75 bet. I just hate getting a worse number than they could get this morning. But these are two teams that match up really well. They both want to shoot the three ball. We've seen this all year, so they match up really well. Furman has the pieces to stop Chattanooga from shooting the three. The main thing for me here is this is a neutral court, and both teams have jelly legs. Furman's played 2 games in the last 2 days. One of them going to overtime. Chattanooga playing 3 games in the last 3 days. So a first half makes a lot of sense to me for a team that this number was 152 all year. So you did no adjustment to the fact that we're now at a neutral with multiple games under these legs. I also said on a Chattanooga to win the tournament future at 13-1, 16-1, and 19-1. I think pretty low limits on all of those, but knew that Jake Stevens would be back, so that's an easy bet. I hedged a good bit with Furman because I agree this seems like a Furman team that it's their conference to win, so I'm weighted a little bit more towards Furman winning at this point, but I still do come out decently fine if Chattanooga gets the job done. So excited to watch that game because it is a win-win proposition for me, but mostly just want to see no points.
Yeah, and I figured you'd have the under here because I saw the number and I was like, boy, that looks a little high. And as you mentioned, 3-point attempts per game. Chattanooga 1 in the country, Furman 12th in the country. And this is the last game of a grueling tournament. Furman played an overtime game. So I agree, a lot of jump shots. That's when you tend to see teams in that final game missing. I mean, these teams don't score from 2-point range. They're hoisting threes all game long. So I like your call on the under. It's your first half. I like that too. So you want to lock that in?
Yeah, we lock it in. I'm cool with the 71. I was trying to think what this number was earlier, but it really didn't move a ton because it was a first half. So it was 72 this morning, 71. Plenty fine. If we get bit by that point, then okay. Zach says he locked it in for 3/4. That's perfect. I am cool with that. So we'll lock that in. And then the exact opposite, Tom. I'll hit you with a game. I'm curious your take. I've been 0 for 2 this year on this one. So going from Chattanooga unders 2-0, 2-1 that I cannot figure out. I bet for a full unit, and we play this on the show if you're cool with it. The Weber State versus Sac State over 124. This number is just too low for two teams with some pretty good guard play. You're talking about offensive ratings all over the national average. This should be a really good game. The issue is this number is gross. These two teams, 52-49 in the first matchup, or the second matchup, and 50-48 in the second. But I still think this is too much talent on a floor to get this low of a number, especially with a spread this small and a game that matters so much. So I think that the worst case, you're going to get fouling at the end, knowing that a team needs to foul in a late game situation. So I like that over 124 at -108 at Circa. I'm curious Are you liking this low number with these two snail offenses?
Yeah, it's interesting because I saw the number and I said, boy, that's pretty low. And I looked at it and I couldn't exactly remember the scores from earlier this season. And I was surprised that they were so low. Yeah, this is an interesting game because Weber State's dominated, recently, but most of the games have been like razor close. You don't see that too often. Yeah, no, I agree. I thought the number was low, but those first two games, whew,
Yeah,
those were pretty low scoring. But no, I agree. Let's, one of the things too, I always factor in these conference tournaments is, listen, college teams are going to foul a lot at the end anyway. We know that, but especially when you get to this point in the season, because it's win and go home, and they're never gonna wave the white flag if they're within 12 to 10 points. They're gonna keep fouling and fouling, so you get that extra bump at the end, I think.
yeah, I agree. And another thing is, if you look at these Weaver scores, most every game has been decently high scoring, except for when they play Sac State. So
Yeah.
you're seeing the Idaho game 73-65, Portland State 84-68. Like, this isn't a team that doesn't have the capability to score. It's just they see Sac State, and I mean they've been slow, but we saw 62 possessions in the first game, scored 98 points, which is just, I think, an outlier. And getting a third time's a charm. I'm going to take my shot at one more over for the season.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing, man. That Furman Chattanooga game I'm obsessed with that. As we were talking, it went at one book from -4 down to -3.5 down to -3. I mean, there is money they're backing up Brinks trucks to bet Chattanooga tonight. So that's going to be an interesting game. I can't wait to see the outcome there. Now you're locked in. What would you get Chattanooga at to win the conference?
Yeah, it was basically an average out. It's like 16-1, so 200 to win, right at 3K. But and then I've bought off of Furman on any number that I felt was good. I thought 4 was basically as low as we were going to get, so I got -195, and so I've hedged off of a lot. I think Furman wins this game, so I hedged out of my future a lot. Still getting a nice win-win, but feel more and more stupid now that Chattanooga's coming down. It looks like they might be the side, and I had a nice 16-1 that I kind of burned away. But feeling fine no matter what, on the right side.
All right. Well, you ready to look at some of these conference tournament futures?
Yeah, let's dive into this sucker.
All right, let's see what we got here. Now, you said before the show you don't bet a ton of conference tournament futures. I usually don't either. I ended up with 3 this year. So we'll go through that and what your thought process is on some of these. Let's start with the ACC. Duke is the favorite, +290. Then you got Virginia, +300. Miami, +340. Clemson, +650. North Carolina, +650. Then it goes down a little further with some of these other teams. Interesting year in the ACC. There's no real great team. A lot of these teams jumble together. I didn't find any edges here myself. Anything you see in the ACC tournament?
Yeah, it was weird. I looked at these brackets and I tried to decide who had the easiest route,
Yep.
and who had won a bet before I saw numbers, which is probably the wrong way to go about it, as the numbers are the most important part. But in this tournament, I think that Duke has the easiest route, and it shows in their number there, +280. But I thought it was interesting, at 4-seed Duke having better odds than the 1-seed Miami. And Miami's schedule probably is easier. They have to play, Wake Forest, most likely, Wake Forest or Syracuse. And then this Duke team, like the fact that Duke is favored over Miami is kind of interesting. So just seeing the price, I would probably say Miami at 360. But I don't think anybody in the ACC really wants to run into Duke at this point. This is going to be a good conference tournament. I don't worry about Clemson any. I don't think Clemson gets it done. I would say if I was to have to take a long shot, maybe an NC State. What is NC State's price here?
It was +1,200, I think.
Yeah, 1,400 at FanDuel.
14, yeah,
So,
yeah.
If I had
12,
to take a shot,
1,400.
Yeah, if I had to take a shot, it would probably be NC State, but not looking to take a shot in the ACC by any means.
Yeah, I agree with you. Miami, that's a team I have a futures on to win it all. I like that team. Didn't love I look a lot at the draw in the tournament. I'll speak to that next when we go to the next conference. But yeah, Miami would be the team. I suppose. See, to me, North Carolina's +650. No thanks. You know what I mean? You get that North Carolina name baked into the odds, so I don't see much value there. So the moving on to the Big East, here's where I took a team. Now, listen, I got a lot invested in Creighton and my futures that I took last April that aren't going to cash at 100-1. But I saw them plus 340 here, and I looked at the draw. Man, did they get a nice draw. They missed UConn, they missed Providence, they missed Marquette in that lower half of the bracket. Basically, you're looking at Villanova and Xavier. Now, Villanova did just recently beat them, but they run hot. And I just think Creighton matches up well with Xavier. They've scored like 84.5 points in 2 games against the Musketeers. So I took Creighton because I think they can get to that championship game while the other teams battle it up top. Anything you see in the Big East?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Creighton is a really good team. They did get the easier side of the bracket, and in my circle, I did agree with the side of the bracket, just a different team. I kind of like Xavier at 500.
Oh, okay.
Just due to the fact that they play, and I agree, Creighton is the issue there. You have to circle Creighton, who's going to be the favorite in that matchup. But Xavier has an easier first draw, so they're going to play most likely Seton Hall, who I don't see them having very much trouble with. So then basically you get Creighton, and then you're into the championship round versus whoever on the other side. So Villanova could give Creighton issues, and so to be 250, right. I think you're getting potential for issues, championship. When in Xavier, you have just one centralized potential for issue, which do I think Xavier wins it outright? No, but I think 500 is close. And this is the reason I don't bet conferences, because it still just isn't enough for me. I think probably the 650
right.
range would be where I bet that. But I think Xavier's a really good team overall. And Creighton, though they'll be tough, and they will probably win that 500 as a value spot relative to Xavier, I would say.
Yeah, and I can tell you this: if you have a Xavier or a Creighton future, if they play each other, you could just you can hedge by just betting the over, because that game's getting played in the 80s, no matter how you want to slice it. In my opinion, they match up pretty well against each other. The first game, 90-87, at Xavier won that one. The second one, in where Creighton, has racked up most of their wins at home. They won 84-67. They played a little defense, surprisingly, that night. But so that's the Big East. Now here's one. So we got issues here because I got a UCLA futures to win it all, which I was feeling really good about till about 10 minutes to go in that Arizona game when Jalen Clark went down. I checked before we came on here. We still don't have official word on it. It didn't look good, though. At the very least, I don't see him playing this week in the Pac-12 tournament. And for me, the Pac-12 is so top-heavy. You're looking at USC, maybe UCLA, and Arizona. I took Arizona with no Jalen Clark. I know they got him this past weekend at home. I still think Arizona can give UCLA problems with their height. And I just think if Clark he's such a lockdown defender, one of the best in the country, I think it's going to take them a little time to get used to not having him. What do you think about the Pac-12?
Yeah, it's tough. This is one that I circled UCLA as well, just due to who they run into. But again, these numbers just suck, and this is kind of why I don't bet conference. Like plus 120 at FanDuel. Good. Well, you could moneyline parlay these through and get better than 120, I would assume. If they play Colorado, Oregon, and then they get to a championship versus Arizona, 120 looks like a miserable number at that point, in my opinion. But that's the biggest issue for me here. Arizona's only 190, so it is such a top-heavy conference, and one that I think that if I was to bet, I would have to just shoot for like a really high value on like low level, maybe a Colorado 34-1. Maybe they pick off UCLA that's hurt a little bit and not really worried. They can take care of Washington, so maybe a Colorado at 34-1, but it still becomes an issue of just, I think the top 3 teams are the best by far, and then you're just not getting value on them. So it's tough to bet these overall. Like, I was trying to find one all day today to have talked for the show, but it's tough in basically every single conference.
Yeah, no question about it. And I think with Jalen Clark, UCLA is the best team in the country. Now, he's such a unique player, the way he defends. And that's, UCLA and Houston play pretty similar. They defend, they crash the ball, and so when you lose a guy like that and that kind of system, I think it's really going to hurt. We'll see if he's not there this week, how they perform in the Pac-12 tournament. But you're right, those teams at the top, that's a pretty top-heavy conference. A conference I have virtually no opinion on at all. Haven't had much one all season. And you're looking at the Big Ten. Purdue, the clear favorite at plus 160. I think they're way overvalued. Indiana's plus 550. Then you got your Michigan State, Maryland, Northwestern. Illinois is 12-1. That might be a little value there on the Illini, but I just haven't had much luck with this conference all season. Do you see anything in the Big Ten that piques your interest?
Yeah, this is probably one of the closest ones for me. I agree. Purdue is getting weighted as the number one team in the nation, and it opens up some doors. I think that the easiest road, honestly, is Indiana. At 550, Indiana's going to play most likely Maryland, who I'm just not that high on. They just lost to a Penn State team, though they should have won that game. Then they're going to face Northwestern or Illinois. Illinois is actually a decent spot, but they just have to play so many games in that case. So you're getting Maryland, probably Illinois, and then a championship game. And I think 550 is honestly not a bad price for that. So I do like Indiana there. Indiana's a pretty overall rounded out team. You always worry about coaching there, but a pretty good team overall for a 550.
Yeah, let me ask you about, do you see any team here in terms of the NCAA tournament? I'll just throw out, I like Penn State. I like their experience. I think they have 2 stars there. The problem with Penn State is they have absolutely no size, right? They're the worst offensive rebounding team in the country. I think throughout the Big Ten season, that catches up with them. But if Penn State were to get a decent draw, I think they could win a game or 2 in the tournament. But there's none of these teams I really love. Is there a Big Ten team you say, hey, watch out for them in March Madness?
No. Maybe. I mean, it's not a hot take by any means, but Purdue's pretty okay, I would say. But no. Maybe Indiana. Indiana has a whole bunch of pieces that do threaten a team that's 1 or 2 sided, but really this Big Ten just seems like a conference ready to kind of fall down in flames. Illinois is a good team relative to, they've been rated top 20 all year. I don't think they're the 20th best team. There's a lot better teams than the teams at the top of the Big Ten for sure.
All right. Well, now we're going to your neck of the woods, CC. The Conference USA. Got your Florida Atlantic, had a great season, plus 150. UAB, who played part of the year, part of the conference schedule without Jelly Walker, plus 210. North Texas, plus 260. Then a significant drop-off to Charlotte, who, unless this game is being played in Charlotte's home arena, I don't think they're going to win, plus 1,400. And then, to me, just the absolute biggest disappointment in the mid-majors all year. Western Kentucky is 90-1. I don't know how a team with that talent can be 90-1, and have the season they had, but they did. So this looks pretty top heavy as well. You got your 3 teams there that have kind of dominated all year. Is that how you see this conference tournament playing out?
Yeah, the issue here is numbers, and I hate the fact that UAB is plus 195 at FanDuel. This is UAB's tournament to win, in my opinion. They get what? They'll get basically North Texas, who it's a revenge spot. They lost twice. They didn't have Jelly for one of them. I think they handle North Texas decently, probably a 5.5, 6-point favorite there. And then they get Florida Atlantic, who they're going to be a dog against. So 195, if you're talking a number, if this is 3-1, I'm taking UAB here. I just think the Blazers have hit their spark at the right time. They've made schematic adjustments, and I think they look good. The issue is that number sucks. I will say, Western Kentucky at 90-1, you hit it nail on the head. They've played a miserable season. They don't look good, but 90-1 is a ton for a
shocking.
team. So, even when they played UAB recently, they lost by 12, but they looked good for 34 minutes of that game. And so I think 90-1, if you're looking to just take a long shot and probably lose it, you're getting a good price there. This is probably one of the better teams you're going to get in that range in a conference tournament. But the Blazers, this is a tournament that matters more than life itself for UAB. If they don't win, they're out. And every single kid on their team basically is a senior. So Blazers will win this tournament. I'm sticking with that idea. And I wish it was a better price so I could back them.
Yeah, and something you're saying it's absolutely true is like, I bet a couple of these for fun, but like the value just isn't there unless you're taking like a Western Kentucky. Like, listen, when I bet Creighton at 100 to 1, I threw $100 out, that's $10,000 if they win it all. You know what I mean? You bet Miami at 65 to 1. When you're betting NCAA tournament futures, you're betting these things hoping a team can make the Final Four. Then you can start looking to lock in money. Conference tournaments are a little bit different because, like you said, there's virtually no value in a lot of these teams that are projected to win it. So unless you can find something down the board a little bit, you're not going to find much value. Well, I'll tell you one thing. I bet Western Kentucky to win the regular season title. I might have to throw 100 on them at 90 to 1 just so I can sleep at night in case they do win this tournament, because that would kill me. That would really kill me. But that's a heck of a number for a team that has that kind of talent on the floor.
They're a quality I mean, not quality, but they have the potential to be a quality basketball team. The issue is potential ceiling is almost over. When the season ends, your potential doesn't really matter too much anymore.
Right.
I have a question for you, Tom, because we haven't talked other than the show. I've been doing my March Madness breakdown and getting ready, trying to find that team that I just think is being slept on and for good reason, headed into the tournament. Who is your squad? I'll tell you mine first, give you a second to think on it so it's not just like a smack in your face. But mine, and I have circled, and every time I've been researching, I really like this team, is Arkansas. I think Arkansas getting Nick Smith back, they've just hit their spot. Like, I think this is a really talented team. They've lost 3 straight, so I mean, I would assume that they're still plenty fine to be in. They're rated 19th per KenPom, but this is an Arkansas team. I mean, they've been losing, but they get pieces back. They've also played one of the tougher streaks of the schedules in the nation. They've played San Diego State, Creighton. They played, I believe, Baylor. Yeah, so they've seen a lot of talent. So I don't think they're going to be stretched out by talent too much by any means. And I don't take their losses to heart too much. They've been a team that haven't had their pieces together all year. So getting a little bit of extra time and practice headed into March. I think this team, they're going to be in the bottom of the pack. They're going to be, 10, 11, 12, probably an 11, I would assume. And they're in a good spot to be a really annoying 11 if they become an 11 or a 10-7 game. You don't want to get them as a 10 by any means. I think this is one of the more talented 10s in the nation.
No, I actually took at Arkansas futures when Nick Smith was out, and it rose a little bit, and thinking, boy, when he comes back, that's going to be a nice number. I think they're going to be a deadly 10 or 11 seed. I think they've played a lot of close. The problem, you got to remember something. We just said that the UAB played a lot of conference games without Jelly Walker. You take Nick Smith off that team, it's a completely different team.
Yeah.
And he missed some time. They had a couple other injuries. I think they're interesting at that number. See, I think that, to me, CC, you hit the nail on the head for this whole tournament. I think in a year like this, you got to look at some of these teams that are talented, but maybe don't have the record or the season, but can be tough matchups throughout, right? Those are the teams I think could make some noise in this tournament, and Arkansas is definitely one of them. Nobody, listen, they're an 8-9 or a 10. You're not going to want to play them in the second round. They have a loads of talent. Not to mention, Musselman's coming off 2 straight Elite 8 appearances. So he knows how to coach a little bit in March too, which I think is going to be another interesting variable this year with teams so similar as coaching. So I like your Arkansas pick. I'm on board with that. So see how the Hogs do. That's a team too, I think we're going to talk about the SEC here in a second, could win the SEC tournament. Let's go first though to the Big 12. This is my favorite. This to me, I think we both agree has been, the best conference in college basketball all year. It's just loaded. I mean, Kansas plus 275, Texas plus 330, Baylor plus 475, Kansas State plus 650, Iowa State 650, and then TCU 750. I know a lot of people are betting that TCU number it was like 850 when it opened. I'm seeing 750 now. Boy, that's an interesting number for TCU now that they're healthy.
I was muted, man. Yeah, I agree. That's whenever I saw the layout, I wasn't sure what the number would be, but I leaned TCU just, let me see. I'm pulling up the bracket now. TCU's road isn't miserable by any means. And for the number, I like this spot as well. Let's see. Give me just a second. There we go. So they're going to get Kansas State, and then they're going to get most likely Texas, and then they're in the championship. So Kansas State's a really good basketball team, but just they're getting. I think that if TCU doesn't get hurt all year, they're the 3 spot instead of Kansas State, and so I'm liking backing a TCU at the 6 spot. I think that Texas has a lot of obvious flaws, and TCU can defend pretty well with basically anybody in the nation. So again, Kansas State, Texas, and then, geez, the other side of the bracket, poor Baylor or Kansas having to run into each other. But getting them the day after playing each other is always nice. And so, yeah, I understand where people are coming with this TCU number at 8-1. I don't know. This is the conference tournament that tells us a lot about March. I think watch every game in this conference tournament because it's going to help you make your brackets basically no matter what, because these teams all have obvious flaws, but they're all really good. Kansas State is another team that can make a run in March by all means, and so it'll be interesting to see how they play TCU in that opening game.
Yeah, that was the team when you said, what team people are sleeping on, and you mentioned Arkansas. Kansas State was going to be my other one. I think people just don't want to buy into this team. They do a lot of things well. I will say this, I bet the Creighton last April, but the first futures I bet heading into the season was Baylor at plus 1,600. Baylor is the dumbest team in the country. They play dumb. I mean, that's their problem. The Baylor just plays stupid basketball, and that's why I think my futures on them is useless. Sooner or later, they're going to play a stupid game, I think. And I just think teams like that, listen, you're going to lose games in a conference like this, but man, there's games where they just simply don't show up. They're throwing the ball all over the place. So I think teams like that are hard to peg. I will say this, though, in terms of the NCAA tournament, and this is just for a game, like a first round bet, like a team like West Virginia, if they get in, they've had such a tough schedule. They've been in a lot of these games that have been close, and watch to see who teams like West Virginia play in round 1, because they might get out of that Big 12 and get some team that's not very athletic and just steamroll them. So that's what I'm looking for in the first round. But yeah, I think here, CC, I agree with all these good teams. I think you got to go with the value, and it's TCU or nothing for me.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was looking at Field of 68's a predicted slate, and they had West Virginia matching up versus Iowa in the opening round, and it made me smile knowing that Iowa as a 7, West Virginia as a 10. People are going to be all over Iowa, and I think that if West Virginia matches up versus basically any Big 10 team, they should be in a pretty good spot, especially this Iowa team who I'm just not that high on. But there's a couple sleeper teams in the bracket, but I think overall this is going to be a year where the top 2 kind of crossed over. I think Houston's the best team in the nation by far. UCLA is probably the second most dominant, though they have injuries, so it's going to be interesting there. But then the middle of this field, I think a lot of 3s, a lot of 4s, a lot of 5s could be in danger pretty quick. Iowa State, They project at 6. I think Iowa State's not that good of a team. Northwestern is a 6 seed. Creighton, I think, is probably a good 6. Kentucky is a 6. These are all teams I could see 11s going absolutely crazy this year, and a lot of 4s as well. You're talking about it, you're going to get UConn, Virginia, and Indiana, Xavier. I could see 2 of those teams losing. There's a lot of really good. Florida Atlantic has lost 4 games this year, and they're going to come in as a 10, 9, 8 seed. So I think there's a lot of talent throughout the entire nation this year.
No, I agree. That's a good point. I will say this: I'm praying to the Lords above that West Virginia and Iowa don't play each other, because that will be my biggest bet of all time. And if it loses, we be eating tuna fish sandwiches over here for the next 3 months. I mean, talk about a dream matchup for West Virginia. They will just be too athletic. Oh man,
talk about a dream matchup for sports bettors too. Just for the average basketball watcher, that has to be a primetime game. You're talking a total that would be in the mid 160s. And get all of everything. So I hope we see that matchup. I would be all over West Virginia as well, and they would be a dog there as a 10 seed. Yeah, that would be an interesting watch. But I'm seeing Creighton matchup versus Auburn or NC State as the 11. I'm talking this. Auburn's a team as an 11 seed. There's just so many this year that you don't want to run into. We just watched that Auburn-Alabama game. Auburn gave them the win, and then they come back and beat Tennessee, which doesn't mean a ton. But I just think there's a lot in that middle of the pack that people need. People like us that have been watching all year are going to have a little bit more of a keen eye too, but the average eye is going to assume that that the 6 seed is better than the 11, which in most cases they are, but this year it's a lot closer than you would imagine.
Yeah, and as someone who has a Creighton future, I don't want to see Auburn because that's the type of team Creighton struggles with. Athletic guards who can get in the, beat you off the ball. Creighton would have a lot of trouble. To me, that would be an even. You can't look at the seeds this year because that's a dead even game. Creighton and Auburn to me is dead even game. So I know Creighton would be favored, but
yeah, Auburn has a big free conference. That would be a really good game. So I'm interested to see how this scheduling goes out. I hope somehow they toss Birmingham some good basketball games because I've already got my tickets for round 1 down here in Birmingham. But somehow maybe sneak the Zags down here to us and so I can watch my boy Drew Timmy go crazy. But I can't imagine that happens.
Yeah, well, I want to get to the Zags in a second before we head out, but one more conference, the SEC, which we've been talking a lot about. This is a pretty tough conference. Alabama's plus 150. I mean, they haven't been playing at top form recently. Tennessee plus 300. They're always overvalued. Kentucky plus 450, probably a little overvalued there. A&M plus 500. Then you're looking at Arkansas and Auburn at plus 1200. And I'd be stunned if any other team other than those won it. But listen, I took Kentucky. That bet sucks, to be honest with you. I don't know. I looked at their set of the bracket, and I thought the winner of them versus Arkansas had a good chance to win this thing. So I went with Kentucky, probably because I just saw them beat Arkansas. But plus 450 isn't great value on them, I'll be honest. Any team here you see that you take a shot on?
I'm on the same boat. If I could get a 650, I would be on Kentucky pretty decently, but I think Kentucky just has the easiest route. Like you're going to get a Texas A&M team that plays Auburn or Arkansas, which is just a tough matchup for them to come back and play. The very next day, play a Kentucky team who has been getting embarrassed. They just lost to a Vandy without their big man. So Kentucky is a good spot, but again, it's just these numbers are bad. So maybe a Kentucky money line and just run it through the length of the tournament in a money line parlay. But Kentucky would be it for me. Alabama, I'm not buying by any means. I mean, since that Miller stuff dropped, they have been miserable. I live bet them in the A&M game the other day, but they just, they've been down at halftime by double digits in every single game since the Miller case. And so there's just something wrong. And they have to run into, Mississippi State or Florida, then Missouri or Tennessee. They have a pretty tough top side of the bracket. So
yeah, they do.
For me or anything.
Yep, so I'm with you. And before we leave, any other leagues you want to go over before I want to talk to you about Gonzaga and St. Mary's. Anything else we're looking at?
Just one, but I can't bet it. So I'm just talking about it for a second. But man, this Oral Roberts number's been staring at me. They win their conference, but 240 on FanDuel. I saw like a 195 last night. And 195 to win conference just seems crazy, but they're 13-point favorite versus St. Thomas tonight. They're going to win that game, and then you're basically getting minus 240 to play South Dakota State, who is a decent team, but they're going to be a 10-point favorite. So is the spreads combined 240? Probably not. So I laid off, but if this was a 170, 180, I'm taking Oral Roberts here. They win their conference tournament for sure.
Yeah, I was looking at South Dakota State for a minute before the tournament started, and I just said, you know what? How about I open up the window and just throw money out? Because Oral Roberts is winning this tournament.
I agree.
But
it's a bad number, but they're winning it.
Yeah. In the end, listen, they're obviously. Listen, the media and fans are going to glob on the teams no matter who they play, right? They don't even care what the matchup is. Oral Roberts is going to be, I got Oral Roberts in the Sweet 16. Oral Roberts is my Elite 8 sleeper. Everyone on earth's going to have him. Tell me the type of team you wouldn't want to see Oral Roberts play early on.
A team with 5 basketball players, like actual basketball players. So just scrolling through, they definitely don't want to see like a Gonzaga type team, a team that like they have one dominant guy but 5 basketball. Obviously, they're not getting Gonzaga.
It's going to run with them and have a deeper team.
Yeah, Oral Roberts has guard play. They have a big, but they don't have enough guard play or enough bigs. I think that Oral Roberts gives a lot of trouble to a lot of teams. I think there's a lot of teams this year that don't want to see, or Michigan State does not want to see Oral Roberts. Maryland. Even Miami, I think, struggles with a team like Oral Roberts. There's a lot of teams that match up bad versus this team. The teams that match up well, I think Duke would hand Oral Roberts a pretty fast ticket to their way home. They just match up well. Like teams like Kentucky, Oral Roberts could probably match up with, and I think this team, I mean, vet driven. Like, don't be shocked if they come in and they do a little bit in March. But I will say this year seems like a year that there's not going to be a Cinderella that has this pretty name like a St. Peter's.
Right.
You're gonna get a team you've heard of before, like an Oral Roberts. I don't think anybody's too surprised to see that name in the tournament again this year. But it seems like these 11 seeds this year are all like Auburn's or Arkansas's or teams that you've heard. There's not really a St. Peter's by any means. The only one that catches my mind, and we'll talk about the Zags. Sorry, I'm rambling, but Drake. Drake has locked in their bid, and they're a very good basketball team. They're vet driven. They have the pieces. They remind me of St. Peter's last year, and I think that if anybody was to do it, Drake would be my team. That would be a fun Cinderella because they deserve it. Drake has been right there for so long at this point, and the non-college basketball watcher doesn't know who Drake is, but the people who do have heard Drake's name for years at this point, and they're just itching for that Cinderella run. So that would be fun to watch. If I had to choose a Cinderella, it would probably be Drake.
All right, well, let's go to the West Coast Conference to cap things off. It looks like a collision course between Gonzaga and St. Mary's. I got a feeling you like BYU plus the points tonight, though, from what you said early on about the neutral court stuff. Is it going to be the Zag St. Mary's 3? And if it is, who wins?
Yeah, I do like BYU first half plus 4 today for a lot of reasons. First off, I just don't think St. Mary's is that great relative to their market pricing. Obviously, they're a good basketball team. And then when it comes down to Zag St. Mary's part 3, I mean, listen, you know where I stand on this. Drew Timmy time. I hadn't shaved until this morning. I had to do it. I was gonna grow it out with him. I still haven't shaved. I haven't got a haircut, but I was gonna grow it out with Drew Timmy, but I couldn't do it. But yeah, too many pieces. They're clicking at the right time. Their guards are looking good, and their bench is deep. I say this to everybody who asks me, and nobody's asking me, but I'm gonna say it anyways. I feel really good about this Gonzaga ticket. We got 34-1 on the show. I think 34-1 on the show. Are they the best team in the country? Hell no. Are they the top 5 best team in the country? Probably not. But this team is clicking at the right time. They have the right pieces. They have the experience. They have the coaching. Like, they've done this. And I don't know. This just seems like the year that nobody's talking about Gonzaga. Who's the 3rd best team in the country? Probably Kansas. And does Gonzaga match up with Kansas well? I say yes. And so sitting on that 34, oh no, we got 20-1. Damn. But no, wait. That's the latest odds. Sorry. So yeah, 34-1. We're looking good. Zach highlights it for me. But 34-1, I'm feeling good on the Zags. They have the pieces to match up with basically everybody. I don't think that they have really enough spark or just big plays to make everybody or even make us feel good about our bets. I think that they scraped through most of the tournament, but they have the pieces to scrape through. So I think that they match up well with basically everybody.
All right, I agree with you. So Gonzaga, I got them 25-1. I didn't like it a couple months ago. I'm starting to like it more now. Like you said, playing well, kind of hitting their stride. And, well, we'll be hitting our stride next Monday, CC, because we're going to have the NCAA tournament field set. We'll go through the regions. We'll give our sleepers, our first round upsets, our final fours, our championships, the whole thing next Monday. Are you ready?
Yeah, I got one question for you. I apologize for coming back to you. But
no, go ahead.
All right, so listen, I'm young. I'm fresh into the game, and I for the first time in my life, I have a physical ticket of a future for Gonzaga to win the championship. It's a big one, too. I posted on Twitter, but I got it. At what point do I fly to Vegas? Is it Final Four? Or am I getting too... Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, it's a weird, like, if I fly in for the Final Four and then they lose, I look like an idiot that just flew to Vegas. But if I wait till the championship day, I'm going to be flying. Like, it's just a weird in between. So I'd be curious if anybody wants to leave me some advice on when to hop on the plane, because the Zags are making it. So now it's just, let's time it down right.
Yeah, the way I always play it is, like, the year Baylor and Gonzaga played, I had Baylor from preseason. I thought Baylor was the best team in the country. I didn't think the Zags could deal with them, not their athleticism. And it worked out my way, but that is a time where I didn't hedge and I let it. But listen, Baylor needed a couple of wins there against Arkansas was in position. That they had a couple of games there they had to win that were close. And and I think it all depends on once you get there. Let's see what the matchup is. But I would like Gonzaga's chances if they get to the Final Four. I really would, because I don't think there's that team this year that really hurts them where they can get hurt. It's going to be interesting, but I would like their chances if they get that far.
Yep. I hope that's a problem that I have to have, is figuring out how I'm going to arrange getting to Las Vegas for the championship. But if that's the worst of my problems, then I'm a happy guy.
I'll tell you what, if it's Gonzaga versus Creighton, I'll come with you. We'll be hedging all over the place.
Yeah, 100%. I'll hedge my ticket with your ticket and we'll be good. Just hold the house big.
All right. Well, hey, CC, it's been great talking about conference tournaments. Next Monday, it's the big dance. Thanks for all the information. We'll see you next Monday on Hit the Books.